Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode number 113. This was a recap week for us going into hanging out with Diamond Dallas Page. I did some cold plunging, which, again, I'm never going to do again, as well as some really exciting new techniques and things that I've learned that I'm actually going to incorporate into my training regimens. Ben gets into what's going on with this hacks program, what's going on in his life, kind of the iterations and changes that he's going through, and our drive and passion to always making things better. We close it up with talking about a new longevity study around how do you live past 100. And we can pretty much guarantee that if you're part of the Hacking Your Health group, you're going to live past 100 because we check off all the boxes except one. So you got to tune in to see what that one is. And it's a good episode this week. Obviously joking about living to 100. We have no ability to determine whether or not you go past 100, but we check a whole bunch of boxes for that. So tune in. We'll chat with you next week. And thanks for tuning in for this one.
You know that there has had to have been some sacrifice, whether it's time or nutrition or whatever it is.
Recording myself talking about having a relationship with my chest.
I'm Ben Canning.
I'm Dave Kennedy.
And this is Hacking Health Podcast. Yo. Welcome back to the podcast. Dave's just having a bacon, egg, and cheese wrap, so hopefully he's finished so we can engage in a conversation.
Well, if I'm not, I'm just going to eat it on mute, so the audience gets to see me eating a bacon, egg, and cheese burrito. But you got to get the protein in, got to get the carbs, got to get the fats. You know, like
you just had a Pop-Tart before
serious
we started.
Business eating here, man. Right?
Yeah. Got to get the calories in. I know. I get it.
Got to get the calories in. That's right.
Yeah. I was reading total tangent straight away, but I was reading something last night of a coach being like, you don't need to eat, huge surplus, blah, blah, blah. And at that point I had like 3 bagels and about 50 grams almond butter in front of me. It must have been about 1,200 calories. Like, yeah, shut up. What do you know?
What do you know?
Yeah, you don't know me. You don't know me. Anyway, dudes, welcome to today's episode. Welcome back to normality. How has your week been?
I don't even know how to explain my week, to be honest with you. It all started off with I had nothing planned this week and it was going to be a total chill week. And then all of a sudden I'm flying out to Texas to go close a really large customer of ours for Binary Defense. And it rocked it. I was in a suit and everything else, doing the whole business thing. And then from there, I flew out to Diamond Dallas's Page house out of Atlanta. And I literally slept in Diamond Dallas's Page house for 2 days. And we just hit it off as like friends, man. I mean, it was crazy. It was, I never would have thought as a kid, seeing Diamond Dallas Page doing the Diamond Cutters, Sting and Hulk and Randy and all these like iconic folks that I had when I was a kid, be hanging out with the guy. And, it was amazing to see. He's 67 years old. And this guy is in the best shape I've ever seen a 67-year-old in my entire life. I mean, muscle mass, his ability to move and flexibility, his ability to hit the weights, and he's got no ailments or issues. I mean, he damaged the hell out of his body from wrestling. I mean, he had broken backs and just abused his body like crazy. And the fact that he's able to do what he does, I mean, that guy is one of the most driven people I think I've ever met in my entire life. And it was just really cool to sit there for 2 days, get to know him. He took me through what he calls the gauntlet, and it was the gauntlet. I thought I was going to die. So
sounds unforgiving.
It was unforgiving. Well, we started off with, it was kind of cool. So I get there early in the morning and he starts me off with a cold plunge. So son of a bitch, it finally happened.
I knew it. I called it last week.
Finally happened.
I literally. So discuss. How was it? Not as bad
so
as you
listen.
Not as bad as you thought.
No, it was definitely as bad as I thought. It was worse. But it was listen. So he's filming me. It's DDP.
I can't believe you've known this guy for 2 minutes and you're in the cold plunge, and I've known me for 3
One
years.
of your heroes as a kid. I mean, I didn't say shit. I wasn't like, hey, I hate cold plunge. I'm like, yep, sounds good. I've only done like cold water stuff, but I've never done a cold plunge before. Sounds good. I said I'm not a huge fan of cold, but I didn't get him the nested mind F that is my mind on cold stuff. I let it go. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna suck it up and. I'm not going to let down DDP here. So, it's him and his person that runs his company for Power Cuffs and for DDP Y, which is his yoga program, which is not a yoga program. We'll explain that here in a second. But it's definitely yoga for people that would never be caught doing dead yoga, and it's intense. But so I get into the cold plunge, and it's at 40 degrees, and I'm like, well, how long have you lasted? He's like, well, brother, dude, he's like, I lasted 11 minutes, but I don't do that normally. He's like, just try to go for like 3 to 5, but usually I'm in around 6. And when I get in, I'm like, like I thought I was dying. Like, I mean, it was bad. I mean, I couldn't talk. He's like, dude, relax, breathe. You're gonna be okay. And so we started having normal dialogue, and that's when I kind of had the mind switch of like, listen, I'm not gonna be a bitch for DDP here, okay? So like I just gotta suck this up. It's only going to be X amount of time. I will get through this. It's not going to be a big deal. But it was brutal. It was, it was so cold. My whole body's just like, dude, like, why did I, like, my body's like, why did I give my brain control? Because my brain's obviously an idiot. That's basically what was going on in my body was revolting.
We've had this conversation. There's nothing
an overthrow of government in my mind where my body was going to take over my brain here. But it was it wasn't as bad. Once I got through I would say about 2 minutes, it was relatively okay. And then I actually lasted like 6 minutes, 30 seconds. So it was good. And I got out and I was just shivering. I couldn't stop shaking. I went and changed. And then we went into, he's got these machines that simulate different elevations of oxygen levels as you're going and doing biking. And so it's essentially oxygen deprivation. So normally we're breathing like 21% oxygen, and I was down to like 10% oxygen. And I will tell you, it's like BFR for your body. It's crazy. That's the only way I can explain it. So if you're not familiar
with BFR, you have a BFR strap around your neck,
literally around your neck, right? So BFRs are blood flow restrictions, and I'll tell you a little bit about his BFRs. But you usually put them around your arms, your legs, and they starve your muscles of blood, i.e., oxygen. And so your muscles have to work essentially twice or 10 times as hard to do the same amount of regimen. So you actually, do lower weights, higher reps. It has a much more larger impact on muscle growth and hypertrophy because your muscles are working 10 times harder to go and do it. Same thing for this. I'm pretty athletic, obviously, and especially when it comes to like running and biking, very comfortable doing that for long distances or whatever. Dude, I was on there for 15 minutes, and it might as well have been 15 hours like that I'd been going. My glutes, my hammies, my quads, they were screaming on fire like I had never felt before. My heart rate was at like 170. I was dying at that point. So, and what he would do is he would have me go on the bike, just start off slow for like 5 minutes. And then it was a 5-minute stint of sprints. So we would do a 30-second sprint at 10% oxygen, essentially. But by the way, I'm pedaling at 10% oxygen at this time. And then I'd sprint for 30 seconds, at 10% oxygen. And I'm just like, I can't breathe, right? And then the next 30 seconds, the next 10 seconds, I'm sprinting at 100% oxygen. Dude, that was the craziest rush I've ever gotten. It was like Nas on a car, like just hits you in overgear. My whole body then like geared up and had all this oxygen, gave me like a euphoric feeling. I just coasted. I was like cruising. And then he puts back on the 12% and I go for 30 seconds. So it's like hit training basically. And I was doing this back and forth. And then the very last one for like the last like 3 minutes, he had me just pedaling and seeing how long I could last just by completely exhaling and not having any oxygen in my body while pedaling. And I lasted like, I think the max I lasted was day 2 that took for me to get to this point. But it was like, I lasted like 22 seconds without taking a breath. But I was like punching, like I was like, my body was like convulsing, like, dude, you can breathe, this, right? And it was like paining me inside, but I couldn't let DDP down. So I went and I did this. So we did that. Then we did his DDPY yoga program, which was, it's yoga in the sense of the stretching pieces, but there's so much more to it. There's a lot of negative weight resistance, concentric type movements, and then he incorporates blood flow restrictions. And so I actually have here, you're watching the stream. If not, you can just go to, it's powercuffs.com, but he's got these blood flow restriction cuffs, and he's got them for both arms and legs. And I'll tell you the design of this, I have multiple BFRs. I have ones that are just the straps that you pull that has like the little thing on it, right? I have the automatic ones that are app driven. These are phenomenal. I'm not just saying that because DDP is awesome. It's designed. I've never seen a design like this. So for one, it's like where you actually put it in, there's like a nice little bit of padding here where it goes over. So it's super comfortable, which is always an issue with BFRs. But 2, you have the strap, you put it on, there's this elasticity here. So when you get a pump, it still puts the pressure on you, but it allows you to move without having to adjust it, which is great. But it's still strong enough to still give you that pump and that blood flow restriction. Then there's a little clip here. Now, the coolest part about it is that on this, there's a little dial. And all you do is, so it comes out in like a pop state where there's no air in it. You push it down and you just twist to the tightness that you want.
Nice.
And that now gives you the BFR. You don't have to twist a couple times. It gets strong fast. And then when you're done, pop them. And now you pop it. And then all of a sudden, it's super easy. So in between BFR sets, you can pop it, get that, release in the relief, to recover faster. And then, his whole thing is power up. You go poop, and you go, and it's like pop them, And so we were doing that both for legs. And by the way, I hate BFR legs. And these I actually will use. Like these are legit, used for BFR legs too. So I was actually really impressed by the power cuffs. I highly recommend them. I get no referral codes or anything like that, other than DDP is awesome. But the power cuffs are my new BFRs for sure. But it was intense, dude. Like I was gassed. We started off with doing a lot of yoga stretches and things like that. It was like more active based yoga. I was drenched in sweat. My heart rate was up, but anybody can do it. And I would tell you, when I finished just the stretching pieces, my mobility, especially my hips, which are one of my biggest areas of issue, I could go full range of motion, hips completely open. And just with 2 days of doing this, my range of motion went up, I would say 50%, just on my hip flexors and my ability to open up my hips and my quads and my glutes and hammies. And like, it was really weird because I wasn't used to that range of motion. And, he was already telling me, he's like, hey, dude, you're way ahead of me when I first started this, but he's got like his effing foot to his like nose, and like mine's like all the way out here, it's amazing what he was able to do at 67 years old and still, maintaining an amazing physique and body. Just pro athlete for sure, but anybody can do that program. And there's so many success stories. Then we did BFRs with low weights and the weight training part. So you did the yoga part, and then there's the weight training part. That kicked my ass, dude. Like, we started off with barbell bench, and I'm like, well, I can do 125s for 12. Why don't I just go and I'll do 60. I don't want to like eagle lift, right? I'm not going to be a dick. And so I get on the thing and I do 60 with BFRs, by the way. Blood flow restriction is super hard to do, by the way. So we're talking really low weights here. So we're doing, the first is 30 reps. Then you have 4 more sets of 20. Okay. It's a lot of volume. It is a lot of volume. And so I get done with the first set of 30, and I'm like high-fiving, we're like, yeah. I get to the second set and I drop my weight down to 50. Okay. So I'm like, well, I'm not gonna be able to do this for 20 more reps or so. I get down to 50. Halfway through my 50, I'm fucking burned out. I got nothing. Like they're dead. Like there's no more glycogen. It was like, nope, you're done, bud. Like after your first set, you're done. I was like, and here's DDP with 40 pounds at 67 years old. All the way through. Dude, I was down to 30 pounds and I was still struggling. That dude wrecked me. I was a broken man. So it was awesome. It was so cool to go through it. It was good to hang out with him. His wife had cooked us dinner that night. We got to hang out and drink wine and, chat about stories. And he told me all about his days at like WCW and WWF and like his whole history about how he came up. I didn't realize this, but he didn't know how to read until he was 35 years old.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Crazy. And, he started his wrestling journey when he was 35 years old. He was the oldest person to start his wrestling career. By 41, it was the first time he won the world championship belt.
I'm 35. I think I can still time
to
start a wrestling career.
I think you'd go great, man. Yeah.
Fucking right.
You gotta come up with a cool name though. I'd be the hacker. What would you be? You'd be the Irishman?
No, it's too generic. We'll let people listening tweet us at We Hack Health what we think the suggestions.
So let's do a poll on what would be Ben's wrestling name, right? Or Dave's. What's Ben and Dave's?
And for bonus points, what would our finisher moves be?
Yeah, what our finisher be?
Yeah.
DDP's was the diamond cutter.
Yeah.
And but it was cool like to hear him talk about like how he was able to get a break. Like if you look at that time, the Macho Man Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan and all these people were like the top of the game, right? And they were kind of the bar of entry to get in. And he was sitting there and, obviously wrestling is fake. And I made this joke of like, oh, like I was like, oh, you hurt my heart. I can't believe it's not real. It's obviously all scripted, but what people don't realize is a lot of it is decided by the wrestlers and the folks that kind of build the scripts out and things like that. But it's all like natural. Like they don't have like scripts that they're reading. They have a general concept and they go out there and they play it out. Right. And he was sitting next to Macho Man Randy Savage and the GM comes in. He's like, hey, Randy, how do you want to handle this fight between, DDP and Macho Man? And, DDP's like, oh, I'm sure I'm just going to lose, and this or whatever. And Macho Man's like, well, I think I'm going to take the diamond cutter tonight. And which means he was going to win. DDP was going to win against Macho Man Randy Savage, right? And so that's what happened. And he ended up going out and doing the diamond cutter, which beat Randy Savage, which opened up his whole career to now playing with the big boys. And he became the top of his game at that point with, the whole Sting, thing, and like everybody just kind of coming together. And it was just, for me, I remember watching those things live, and I'm sitting there and I had the guy that was there explaining to me behind the scenes about what was happening. Monday Nitro, I was watching, and then, you have Friday Night, I think it was Friday Night Raw or whatever, or it was Monday Night Raw. I watched both of them. And, I always loved WCW, especially the arc themes with the Sting stuff. Sting and DDP are like my favorite heroes. In fact, I was so pissed as a kid when Sting went to the New World Order that I stopped watching it for like 3 weeks because I was so mad at Sting for leaving. It was obviously all fake, but, like you grew through these guys, and they were huge inspirations. And, what DDP's doing and the lives he's been able to change was just so cool to be there. And he was showing me just, comments on the DDPY yoga page on Facebook. And I mean, you just these people that he's changing their lives and, the success that they're having with the programs. But I will also say, and I'm going to discuss this with you later today, but I want to incorporate this into my workout regime. I mean, I honestly do see the value of this. One, it's not rushed. It's relaxing. I felt kind of a state of zen as I'm going through and doing this, right? But second, like my mobility just changed like so fast. Like within 2 days, my range of motion increased by 50%. And, and it's not hard to do. It's taxing, especially if you're doing his like it's more like a cardio based DDPY yoga / resistance / muscle, right? But, it's cool because he does like, he'll have you like, touch your glutes and hammies and make sure they're locked into position. So they're locked, right? And then you kind of come up for a diamond cutter, right? And then you come down, and you're like, so it's like 4 people that would never do yoga. But yoga, right? And it was just a cool experience. I'm going to incorporate it. I definitely want to think about how I want to do it, but more repetition, more burning out the muscles from an endurance perspective, and also focusing on the stretching. I'm thinking like Sundays can be my yoga days, right? Just active recovery, not hard, right? Just slow stretching, give the muscles time to breathe. And then maybe instead of a day of Orange Theory, I knock out this and I do DDPY yoga. So I do 1 day of Orange Theory, 1 day of DDPY.
Serious comments here. Come on, knocking Orange Theory out of the park. I'll make you a deal. If we can incorporate the yoga, if you incorporate cold plunge on a more regular basis.
I'm not doing cold plunge on a regular basis, bro. Seriously. So the second day I was there, he had me do cold plunge and this oxygen deprivation stuff. He also did this. So the TENS units.
Yeah.
So he's got like a TENS unit on steroids. It's like this massive, like,
sounds illegal.
I thought I was gonna get electrocuted and die, but it's like these coils, these huge ass coils. And I had a little bit of back pain that day from the previous day because I'd done deadlifts, the day before. I was kind of exhausted, and he put that on me. Gone. No pain. Like it was the weirdest sensation. I literally got up. I'm like, oh, wow, okay, this is great. So he does that. His regiment wakes up, goes down, does the cold plunge. Sometimes he does cold plunge, hot sauna, cold plunge, sauna. Does both. Then he goes and does the opposite, oxygen deprivation stuff. Then he does DDPY, and he does his and so by 1 o'clock, he basically spends from 8 o'clock in the morning until noon working on his body and his physique and his health. And then and by the way, he's gluten free and like all organic. Dude, the food that I ate there was incredible. Like the shakes, I felt like even like my inflammation going down from like a food perspective. I was like, so last night, I'll just give you a perfect example. Last night, I totally was going to order Taco Bell because I got home late. It was like super late at night. Man, I went and made myself a steak and asparagus last night. I was like, I feel so much better without this crap in me. Just by 2 days of eating, you
just had a Pop-Tart just before we hit record.
Well, yeah, I'm eating a Pop-Tart now, but I mean, like I'm not gonna make a whole chain right away. Small steps, Ben. Small steps. All right. I'm definitely eating a Pop-Tart. I had to eat it. Listen, I gotta get the glycogen replenished after my workout, so I'm definitely eating a Pop-Tart right now. But listen, I can't help that it's so good.
Is it gluten-free Pop-Tart?
There's not a gluten-free Pop-Tart.
Organic.
DDP, hope you're not watching this.
Right.
So he did say he's going to come on, which is really awesome. So we'll have DDP on here very soon onto the podcast. And I think he's open to doing it more regularly, which I think would be really cool to talk about his perspective and what he's doing with the DDPY program and everything else. He has a unique individual, man. You don't see many people like that.
Cool. I mean, I'm in. I'm going to
Like
tell him
us.
you're eating Pop-Tarts after talking about how good his organic gluten-free food was.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I'm glad you had a good experience. I'm glad you did a cold plunge. I do think you should do it more regularly because it is highly beneficial. But like
I
you
hate
said,
it, dude. I
bagels,
hate it.
good. That's good. You should do more stuff that you hate. Challenge yourself a little bit more.
All right, enough about me and like the most amazing time I had in my life with DDP and like incredible times. But let's talk about you.
Well, me.
Did you meet DDP last week too?
No, I did not meet DDP. However, I did go to London with Helmy. So, I mean, same thing.
That's just cool.
Yeah. It's actually funny. So, whenever we were at the Belfast event, there were a couple of people who sort of suggested a day in London because there were a couple of people over the UK. And then by chance, there was a couple of Meg was over and Daniel was over. They were going to be there at the same time. So, I was sorting out the flights and stuff, and Luke texted me saying, "Is Helmy coming?" I was like, "Well, I didn't think of that." So I just texted him saying, "Look, do you want to go to, or what are you doing on the 8th of October?" And he was like, "No, what are we doing on the 8th of October?" And then he went, "Actually, don't tell me, but I'm in." I was like, "Okay, right." So booked the flights. Just he picked me up, and he was like, "What are we doing?" And I was like, "Well, this is what we're going for." He had absolutely no idea what he's coming for. But anyway, we went to London. Monica picked us up. She did an emergency bagel run for Helmy because he forgot to bring his bagels. We went and trained me, Helmy, Monica, Luke, and Meg. Hung around London on Sunday, went out for dinner, went for sushi. Daniel came and met us. He just happened to be there at the same time. So a bit of an impromptu meetup in London with the team, which was cool. Then I got back here Monday and just got straight back into work. As I sort of touched on last week, I am in the middle of like essentially rubbing out the way that I do things and rewriting it. So normal work on Monday. Tuesday, I went inside the coffee shop. Actually, it's funny because Rand had messaged me the night before and he was like, "What are you doing tomorrow?" I was like, "Oh, I'm going to go and sit and do this." He goes, "Do you want me to come and we'll record some content for it? And you can like, sort of like almost tell the story and write the narrative of what you're actually doing." So he arrived and I just literally finished going through all the feedback forms from the call on Friday night. And I was like, "Are you okay?" And it's like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Why would somebody?" He goes, "You look like you've just absorbed endless amounts of information and can't really compute what's going on." But long story short, we recorded some content, made a content plan. There's a lot of sort of feedback from the call that would benefit him because he asked a lot about like the market and what sort of attracted people and how he can sort of do his job essentially better. So we went through that, and then pretty much this week I've just been sitting, going through it, rewriting stuff, and essentially starting. I'll not say from the ground up because, as you said last week, I already have a pretty good foundation, but essentially starting from the start of the process and working out how I can make every individual piece better, which has been good. There's things that I wanted to change over time. There's suggestions that have been made. So essentially, it's a bit of a combination of my thoughts on the past year and how the program went, and then obviously clients' perspective on things. So it's been an interesting one, but it's been good. Having a bit of back and forward with Adam, recorded a hashtag not a coaches hot seat with Adam on Monday to sort of introduce his roles and responsibilities into the group, which was cool. It was cool for me to sort of see him almost like in his role in the video and in the conversation that we had. So I think it'll be good. And then I have a call with Travis on Monday coming to record his one and sort of introduce him. So starting to build out the team, which is exciting.
That is exciting, dude. Business has grown. You're figuring out the ways that you need to improve and innovate. And you mentioned the feedback that you'd gotten from, all of the different folks and things like that, from as previously done. I mean, that's your best type of feedback, right? There was
100%.
There's a book that I have. It's called, where is it? I'll have to find it. It's back here somewhere. But it essentially goes through like the first page starts off with, I think it's the first 90 days is what it's called. And it starts off with there's a group of the leadership team talking to one another about their businesses, and they're seeing the decline in sales, seeing the decline in revenue, and they're all trying to figure out why. And everybody has their idea of why, right? They're like, "Oh, well, he's not doing this, or she's not doing this, or we need to discount our prices, or we need to do this," and it's all over the place. And no one actually knows what the problems are or how you can make yourself better, right? When all they need to do is go to their customers and say, "What did you love? What didn't you love? And how can I make that better?" Right? And that's what we do at Trusted Sec, like in Binary. Like, what are we doing that you don't like that it could be easier for you? Right? What can we do to get more value out of what you're doing in this program? And that's obviously what you're doing here. And that type of feedback is invaluable in business, in life, in anything you do, friendships. there are things that in your marriage that your wife doesn't want to tell you, your significant God doesn't want to tell you because you haven't asked. Like those are the things that can make a big difference in this. And obviously, you getting your feedback from some folks, I'm sure had some great ways for you to kind of improve and get better as you go along. And I'm sure some of them were completely like off the wall crazy, or you're like, I'm not using that shit. But most of them I'm sure are probably pretty good.
Not to that extreme, but some of them was like manage expectations a little bit. Like there's things that I can do, and there's things that I absolutely cannot do. But it was quite funny because there's obviously quite a broad spectrum of people that filled it out. So there was different levels of like what people found really good. Some people found absolutely awful. So it's like, how do you balance the give these people what they need, but also give these people what they need? So like I said, I've literally been like, I'll show you for the people. I think the people who watch get a little bit more of an insight now, but I think like I've literally been like rewriting everything from start to finish, based on the feedback. 41 pages of notes I took on Tuesday from the questionnaires and the feedback, literally from the start of the process, in terms of when you first made the decision you needed to change, when you first saw me or Dave or We Hack Health, or what it was, where you saw it, what triggered you to book the call, how was the process, blah, 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 the whole process. So it's been a cool experience, and a lot of things I sort of knew, a lot of things that I didn't know. Some of the things around the check-in process that we know that people generally don't like, that will be changed. But it's literally, like I said, sort of taking the whole thing apart and putting it back together in a slightly different order, to relaunch things here next month.
That's awesome, dude. Well, I'm excited for you and the continued progress of what you're doing. And I know you're always looking at innovating, so it's always good to see that. And we're going to be chatting here after this for a little bit to chat about kind of next generation stuff, future stuff, which is great.
Mm-hmm. Agree. And I actually it was probably about this time last year that we recorded the looking for beta testers. So I guess it's a timely fit to record this episode. I went back and listened to a bit of that to sort of see where my head was at and what the narrative was then. But essentially same idea. We're going to essentially start again, to see where we go with things.
Awesome. Well, yes, that's great. We had some good weeks, and it's always good to see all the feedback on the Hacking Your Health folks. I was just in the Discord the other day, checking in, and man, it's active. People.
Helmy's now in the Discord. I mean, I don't know if he knows.
I didn't see that.
That's who I tagged, and everybody tagged you. You did welcome him, but I don't know if you actually knew who it was.
Oh, okay. Yeah, probably not. Yeah, that's awesome. Helmy?
Yes.
Is he actually checking and stuff?
Well, I don't know, because whenever I was on the call this week, I was like, everybody go and tag Helmy, but he didn't reply, and I sent him a screenshot last night, being like, see this? And he goes, just still trying to get used to it, bro. It's like, so he is in it, but I mean, he's not using it.
Yeah, makes sense. But well, that's cool. That's awesome. But it's good to see all that stuff. But I'll tell you, when I was going through, the stuff with DDP, which could be probably a good, for one, conversation on just things that you learn and new things that you can do out there, but also, just the continuously learning process of things, I think is so important. When you go to somebody that's in their late 60s and they're having success, and they've had success with other people as well during their programs, you kind of look at, well, what are they doing different? I'm probably not going to be able to deadlift 600 pounds. Well, not quite 600 pounds, 575 pounds, my whole life. It's just not going to happen. Right. So how do you, adjust when you get to those periods? And DDP was very, cool about sharing how he was able to go from, being the best shape of his life in his 30s, wrestling, the dude was jacked and muscular. I think it was at 254 was his normal weight within that. And, how do you, maintain that, and how do you grow? And he was talking about how most of the wrestlers, their shoulders are jacked up. They can't move. Like they can't do this. They can't, they're just crippled. They're in wheelchairs, or, they're just not healthy when they get through. And he was able to obviously overcome that with his program of how he does things. But, he also does blood work. He also, does TRT. He also looks at the longevity aspects of things as well. And he's trying different things as well. So, he's got a sauna there. He's got the oxygen deprivation. He's got a cold plunge. He's got a hot tub. He's got this crazy electromagnetic thing that, is going to fry your brain. He's got all these different things that he's always open to trying, based on the studies, and he's very intelligent with that. And, his wife, Paige, I'm not sure how old she is specifically, but, on the younger side, but, she's in immaculate shape, with what she focuses on, so it's amazing to see as you get older, the quality of life. I mean, DDP wrecked his body and he's still able to function normally. I mean, the dude is one of the most charismatic and outgoing people I met. When he's giving speeches, like he's just out there at 67 years old, like giving a talk like he's in his 20s. And, it's like, that's the type of person I want to be, when I get older. So, being able to look at, when do you start focusing more on, maintaining, or when you look at more focusing on making sure that you stay healthy. And that's why I think, when I was talking about switching to some of the DDPY stuff, the reason I look at that is because I'm hitting the side of my body that I don't typically do, right? Which is, the endurance side of my muscles, the ability for me to focus on stretching and flexibility and mobility, putting time into my body from a just a relaxation perspective and recovery. Those are all things that I'm looking at from a different perspective now that I'm in my 40s, that I want to start incorporating so that I can do this long term. And again, I don't know how long I'm going to be able to continue to shoot up in weights. I have to imagine it's not going to be too much longer. I'd probably say my 50s. I'd have to maybe I can do 700 my 50. Being 50 would be awesome. But after that, it's probably not going to be much longer, right? So how do I make this the longest I possibly can and get what I need to out of this from my own perspective, right? Everybody's goals are different when it comes to their physique and what they want to accomplish and how they want to look, and how they want to feel. DDP is like at 68. He's lean. His posture. Up like this, right? And he's got that look. He's got muscles at 60. I mean, I couldn't believe he was 68 years old. I was like, man, he's probably like late 40s, early 50s. And lo and behold, he's 20 years older than that. That's the type of stuff that gets me excited about this, because it works, right? And this type of stuff, because he's doing his whole life. Like, he started doing the yoga stuff when he broke his back, and they told him that he would never wrestle again. And the following year, he won the world championship title, right? And it was primarily due to yoga, recovery, the stretching, the flexibility, doing low weights because he couldn't do high weights because he had broken his back. And he just stuck with that, and he's been able to maintain this. Well, and he's a good example of that type of stuff. So, for me, I'm kind of on a new leaf as far as like exploring other things that I can, just play around with, see if it works within my regiment. Look at new data, look at new scientific research things, look at new ways of doing things that maybe I didn't do before in the past, just to keep up with this. I mean, I'm having a great time with it. So, why not try different things to kind of, expand and get better with it, right? Be open-minded.
Yeah, I think, as we know, it's an ever evolving process. And I think that even for myself, like the things that used to work for me, even, 5 years ago when I worked in the gym floor, they don't necessarily work for me now, not from an age perspective, but just from being realistic in terms of the time that I can commit to it and other responsibilities. So knowing that you can adapt it and change things over time. And I think across the board, knowing that it doesn't always have to be this one way, you can change things and adapt it as you go along, as you change, as your priorities change, as like what you want to achieve from your body changes, and as just like what you want from your body changes. Because it can be a case of, yes, okay, whenever I initially started training, all I wanted to do was fill out my t-shirts. I still want to do that. I just keep buying bigger t-shirts, but it's like being able to be strong, being able to be stronger, but also like being able to be useful, I think is probably the best way. Like, I don't want to be big and strong but unable to walk up the stairs. So it's like knowing that your priorities change. And obviously a lot of the people that I speak to and a lot of the clients that I have, like, one of the big concerns or one of the main conversations we have in that initial call is they want to be able to sort of keep up with their kids or coach their kids' sports teams, or, just not be the dad that like is winded after 5 minutes after, running after them in the park. So it's like, okay, there is things that we do want to change in terms of physique and whatever else, but it's like understanding the why and understanding that will change as you sort of go through life.
I'll tell you something. Something that happened to me yesterday. I actually got a tear in my eye from this. My son realizes that these types of comments have a huge impact. But I got home and I landed from Atlanta, and my daughter had an orchestra orchestra concert, and so I was driving straight to the school to go for that. Made it in plenty of time, And she was on the right hand side with the band, and her eyes just lit up when she saw me. She's like, "Oh my God, Dad, you made it! I knew you would, but so happy you're here." And she just looked so beautiful, and by herself. She had her own solo, and she's doing her own solo with the violin. And I'm just like so proud of this girl that was this tiny at one point in time, and now she's just absolutely brilliant and smart. But my son Gavin, he's hitting his growth spurts. He's getting taller. He's getting a deeper voice. He's lifting all the time. He lifted every day while I was gone with his buddy, and another buddy that I was into it. So they're all coming over to my gym to hang out and lift. And he's got the form down. He's just studying his ass off on, macros and body fat percentages and eating right. And, what he's doing from a workout regimen. He's asking me form advice and stuff like that. And just such an awesome time to be involved in his life, especially when I'm at this point in my life from a health perspective. And, I get out of the car yesterday, it's just him and I. And he's like, Dad, he's like, I'm just, I was like lifting the other day, and I was like, why am I lifting? And he's like, well, I want to be strong, right? He's like, I want to be strong. I want to be big. And I also want to be successful, driven, and motivated. He's like, then I realized I just want to be like you, Dad. And I was like, oh, man, hit me right in the feels. And I was like, dude, that's so nice of you to say. I'm like, you absolutely have that within you, dude. And you can be anything you want to be. You can be as successful you want to be, as big as you want to be, as muscular, whatever. It's just, you got to keep working at it and focusing on it. And, that's what I learned on that. It unfortunately was a later age for me.
Yeah, can you imagine starting 20 something years beforehand?
Yeah. Like, son of a bitch, you're jacked, you're bigger than me. And I don't know if I like that or not, but I'm gonna throw him off a little bit. I'm gonna have him do some more cardio, so he doesn't gain muscle.
Yeah, but, new scientific study has shown
you need to run 6 miles a day, 6 days a week, and you only lift 1 day a week, just to kind of curb the gains a little bit here. But just obviously teasing. But it was just cool to see him and for him to kind of realize that he has the power to do what he wants to. And it's going to take work. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of momentum to make that change. But he is fully committed to doing it. And, I'm here for him when he needs me. I'm back when I don't need to be, to let him explore and to learn and do different things. And, it's been cool because I'm in that position in my life, health wise, to be able to instill that, with him. So it was such a nice, sentiment. And I was just like, oh, dude, you have no idea. You just made my day. So it was cool.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, I had a conversation this week, and a similar sort of narrative about the people closest to you and around you, whether it's friends or family. It was with our man yesterday. I think it was yesterday. And he was talking about, the people who he would see day to day, whether it was in the workplace or whether it was his family or whether it was, people he was close friends with, who are now starting to come to him for suggestions around training or, what he's doing or why he's doing things. And I think that the best thing, especially about what you're saying as well, it's like that we are influencing these people around us by just doing the stuff for ourselves. So it's not like you're not actively going and telling them to train or whatever. You're almost like, I'm just doing this. You can see the improvement in me. And they're then not interested in that just by you doing it for yourself. So it's like you're not forcing it on them, but it's like you're doing it to improve yourself. And by osmosis, we'll say, they are then, taking it upon themselves to do more and want better for themselves. And I think that's, taking it right back to the people that we can help, whether it's directly help or whether it's the people who listen or the people who listen and make the change and the people around them. It's an immeasurable number of people that can be helped on the greater scale of things.
Yeah. And that's what I saw, with DDP. You get emotional at times, when he's just reading these things, because he's like, oh my gosh, I'm having this impact and it never gets old, right? He just enjoys, that thing. And so, it's such a, when I left, when I was leaving, he said to me, he's like, I can tell you're the same way as me. He's like, if you ever want to be successful in life, help other people without ever expecting anything in return, and something will happen and, reciprocal, but it's the best feeling you're ever going to have in your life. You're going to get the most reward out of life, and therefore you're successful. Right. And I think that, obviously with what we're doing from a Hacking Your Health movement, what he's doing, what you see, other folks being able to do to help folks that are in need. That's just what this is all about. And it was neat to see that with him, but also the people just in my immediate, circle of friends that I was able to help. And then obviously what you do and what we've done, together. It's just awesome every day. But the thing is, I always get asked the question, well, where do I start? And it starts with you saying, I'm going to start and do it and commit to that. Right. That's literally the first step is, well, I'm not going to, it's the discipline of doing repetition. It's the discipline of doing things over and over and over again without that immediate return, knowing that eventually it'll change. And, that's the cool part about this is it just small steps turn into big things, the rest of your life.
It's funny because one of the questions that Ryan asked on the call was, what was the thing that made you realize that you needed to make the change? Obviously, it was, numerous different answers, and all like health related or things that they see in themselves or physical things or whatever. And another question he asked was, how long was it before you actually reached out? So like, how long was it, me specifically, obviously, how long was it before you sent the message or sent the DM or booked the call or whatever? And it's literally anything from less than a week to over a year. So you like, I mean, that amount of time for, okay, I know I need to make a change for whatever the reason is, whether it's for my family, for myself, for my job, for my health, whatever the reason is. Everybody has their own reason. It's like the time, essentially shorten that time is the best thing that I can say. Like the time between you need to make that decision of making the change and actually making the change, because unless you do it, it's not going to get any easier or any better. I just thought that was interesting in terms of like the scale of difference in time before people actually committing to making the change, and whether that is with me, with the stuff that we're talking about, or whatever way that you want to do it. But I think you're exactly right. It's the making the decision that you're going to do it, and then actually following through with that and actually doing the stuff on the other side.
Yep, that's it. Follow through and being able to just do what you can to make yourself better, and it's just a commitment of lifestyle. It's lifestyle. It really is. It is, and there's some good studies. So I wanted to bring these up on the podcast today because it is relevant to what we're talking about how do you be successful. But what's interesting is there's a news article from Medical News Today, and it went over a number of locations and zones for the people that live the longest. Right, America being one of the worst, by the way.
No shit,
which doesn't surprise me. But as of 2021, there was an estimated 573,000 centenarians, meaning you lived over 100 years or older, which is crazy to think. 500,000 people that live over 100, which by the way is not many if you in comparison to everything else. The United Nations expects that number to jump rapidly with a reported estimate of 3.7 million by 2050. And so what they looked at was National Geographic basically looked at and published a study in 2016, but they did a additional larger study later on that looked at the locations where people live the longest. So Sardinia, Italy, Icaria, Greece, Nicoya, Costa Rica, Loma Linda, California, and Okinawa, Japan were some of the 5 largest areas that contained the largest folks of people living to centenarians. And so here's a blog from this. There are places where human beings have lived manifestively long, but are explained in the Medical News Today. They've achieved the health outcomes we want, long lives, largely free of chronic disease. Since only 80% of how long we live is dictated by disease, these people's lifestyles and environments offer us instruction and clues on how we can set up our lives to live longer. So in order to live longer, here's the things that they discovered. And it's really 9 things that live to a longer life. And some of these I was relieved to see in there because I was worried that it was going to be like, well, hey, you need to do this, this, and this prescriptive, right? Whereas it was more so positivity and, community of people that you work with, which live to longevity, which is interesting. But one of them is move naturally. Movement. Actually moving around gets our bodies working, cardiovascular stuff pumping. We use the stuff that we're supposed to. Our bodies work good under stress. So therefore, moving naturally is one. Having a purpose in life was number 2. Purpose in life. You ever hear the saying, when you retire, you're going to die pretty quickly after that or something like that? It's something like statistically, most people that hit retirement die within a few years of their retirement. And that's because what's their purpose? Is it just to be on a beach and relax and do nothing? Or do you have other hobbies or things that drive you? What's your purpose in life? Human beings happen to be very purpose driven. When we lose that, we're not happy creatures. If we're not contributing to our tribe, if we're not working with one another, if we're not accomplishing something or tasks, we don't do well.
It's actually funny that you mentioned that. So yesterday I was a couple of voice notes back and forward with Kira, and she had a bit of a odd situation the day before. But she finished off one of the voice notes by essentially saying life is short, go and make connections and live with purpose. And I was like, well, I'm going to challenge you in that because I'm pretty sure I do that on a daily basis. I just had 2 really good conversations with clients. I had a call with Armand, like I said, and a call with Alan. I was like I build deep connections with the people that I work with, and I do it on a daily basis. And I have a purpose because the thing that I'm doing is helping them live a better and longer life. And she came back to me and says, fair. Like whenever there was a conversation that she obviously was at the Belfast event, and she said that she saw it firsthand, like the thing that I call work, quote unquote, isn't necessarily a job because it's driven by wanting to create connections and having a purpose to help people. And what a fortunate situation for me to be in, that is, how I make a living or what my career is, by having those connections. And I know that community is obviously going to be one of them. And like I said, having a purpose. So I feel like that box is definitely ticked in my eyes.
Absolutely. Oh, no question. You're one of the most driven people when it comes to having a purpose, right? You're always trying to better, your programs you're doing, always trying to help more people. Your mind never settles on anything. That's a good thing, right? So number 3, reduce stress. And if you actually click on their subcategory of what reduction of stress was, it's short-term stress relief, but also, long-term things, short-term, breathing techniques, muscle relaxation, mindfulness. But long-term is really more into, understanding your surroundings of your environment and, reducing the stressors around you or what you actually get stressed out about. DDP told me, he's like, if you get up in the morning and you're pissed at waking up and going to work, guess what? Your entire day is going to be a shit show, right?
Yeah.
He's like, if you're going to work miserable, your day's already starting off on a bad note. The rest of your day is going to be shit. Instead you start off the day with, it's going to be an amazing day. You go and you do some workouts, some exercises, you do something for your body. You're already, putting time into yourself to better yourself. Man, all of a sudden that's going to be a fucking good day. Mm-hmm. Right. And reducing those stressors and taking out, by the way, the negative people around you, and surrounding yourself with positive people that support you is reducing stress. Right. And that's why, I don't post on politics or things like that because I don't watch the news. It's something that is out of my control. I can help my local communities, but I'm not going to let that sit there and see people getting killed and murdered and, things like that happening. I mean, it's horrible and we should obviously do something about that. But I mean, I'm not doing something about that right now. I mean, so, I don't have in my power to make a change. So why am I going to let this ruin my life? Bad things happen every day. Across the board. Control what you can from an outlook perspective and be who you are, and remove all of those things around you that cause you to have those stressors, right? You shouldn't be worrying about, what's happening across the board if it's out of your control, right? Those are things that you just got to kind of practice about. Now, the 4th thing was practice the 80% diet rule, which is a stop eating when 80% full, or i.e. caloric restriction is what they're basically saying here, right? So, caloric restriction was one of their big things here.
I tell you what, I'm not practicing that at the minute. I haven't felt hungry in about 3 weeks, but generally, I do practice.
This next one I disagree with, and I want to see how they actually got to the studies with this, but is favor a plant-based diet, which, I think is total BS because they're focusing on a very specific thing. But I mean, there's some studies that show that plant-based doesn't give you the nutrients you need to, so you got to supplement with other things. There's other studies that show, hey, eating copious amounts of red meat is going to give you a heart attack. It's still kind of wishy-washy, but I definitely think having fruits and vegetables in your life is an amazing thing. But when it comes to adequate protein and everything else, I wouldn't say that. But again, I may digress a little bit on that one because I'm a little bit biased.
I'm gonna say something here because I think with the documentaries that threw this in your face about this person went from being a complete shit show with their health, and then they had a plant-based diet for X amount of weeks, and now they've got great health. Cool, perfect. I think you need to recognize what their start point was. If you're a person that ate takeaway food and fast food and junk food and like Doritos all day long, yes, you're going to feel better if you actually eat good quality whole foods. So I think, yes, everybody could benefit from having a plant-based diet if you can have meat as well. So I don't think it should be solely plant-based. I think that, yes, people do need to eat more things that are plant-based for sure. But I also think that people do need to eat animal products. That's
and I think, on that. When you dive down into the article and you look at what they're saying, it's basically saying it from a weight management perspective, which, is you look at the study that came out in July of 2023 around weight training has a much better impact on fat loss as well as body recomposition and muscle mass. So muscle mass being a key category there as you age, cardiovascular health and grip strength, i.e. bone density, muscle mass, are 2 leading indicators of how long you're going to live. And, if you're eating primarily a plant-based diet, it's not saying you can't, but protein becomes somewhat difficult, especially in the upper ranges of 200s, 250s, 300s. It's almost near impossible unless you're supplementing with some pretty heavy protein powders that are plant-based. And, there's no, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think that there's one that's better than others. Some studies that say, hey, animal-based proteins are much more nutrient as far as the amino acids. But if you look at the plant-based now, they add the additional amino acids that are needed for the breakdown of the protein. So, you can say whatever you want to on that. But, at the end of the day, if you're focused on muscle mass and you don't have, an issue around weight, they're primarily linking this to weight control, basically. So if you're obese, a plant-based diet may be more effective for you to losing the weight, which, I don't necessarily test. I think there's so many different ways of being able to do that. So there's not a thing saying, well, plant-based diets are going to make you live longer based on some secret, antioxidant stuff that you're getting through there. It's more so on the obesity / weight management side, which, again, if you break down into that, you can do that with anything, right? So alcohol is the next one. Drink alcohol in moderate amounts. And, obviously that is, each study that comes out more and more on alcohol, there used to be this, study that showed that if you drank like one glass of wine or one shot of whiskey or one beer a day, that it had amazing health benefits. And that's all turning out to be total BS. In fact, even just having one thing of alcohol a day increases your risk of, cancer, increases your risks of, liver and kidney issues, cardiovascular issues. So alcohol just in general, not good for you in any way, shape, or form. Within small amounts, I would say obviously, it's like, diet sodas. Well, if you drink, 24 pack of diet sodas a day, you're probably gonna get cancer, but if you, if you drink one a day, hey, it's probably okay. And it's interesting because there was I was watching David Sinclair, who's one of the leading longevity experts on NNM and NAD. He's the one that basically figured out the breakthrough that, the precursor to ATP, which is our energy production, our chemical response to energy production in our bodies. The precursor that was what's called NAD. And as we get older, we lose NAD, thus losing energy production, which causes us to not be able to repair DNA as fast, not be able to repair our bodies as fast. And so, that's when he found that NAD supplementation increased longevity, which is something that I do on a regular basis around supplementation with NAD or NNM as a precursor to that. And what's interesting with David Sinclair is he's on the Joe Rogan podcast talking, and he's sipping a diet soda. And this is the doctor on living longer. And, Joe Rogan, of course, calls him out. He's like, hey, dude, aren't you supposed to be like the longevity expert? Like, why are you drinking a diet soda? He's like, this? He's like, one of these isn't going to hurt you. You think it's going to cut your life back? Really? It's all moderation. Everything's moderation. You have little things here and there over time. You have a piece of pizza. You don't have the full pizza. You have, one glass of wine, versus a glass of wine every single day or 10 glasses of wine every single day. It's going to have a big difference on your longevity impact. He's like, we breathe more crap in the air, a day than we do that I'm going to have any issues with this specific, soda can. So, I thought that was really interesting and kind of put things into perspective that everything's not a one-to-one rule. I still drink alcohol. I don't do it very frequently. I had a glass of wine when I was over at DDP's house. Might have 2 glasses of wine, and I'm good. I'm good for the rest of the week. I don't need more glasses of wine, but, sometimes I might go out, have a good time, and that's fine. Moderation.
Agree.
The next one, belong to a community. Yes. And so there's a study out of NIH, which was released December of 2020. And it said the relationship between sense of community belonging and self-related health across life stages. And the conclusion was the study contributed to the evidence base supporting life stage differences in the relationships between community, belonging, and self-perceived health. This is a starting point to identify how age-graded differences in unmet social needs related to population health interventions. Basically stating there are direct correlations with social interaction, belonging to a community, and living longer. So I thought that was really interesting, right? So you see a direct correlation between having a purpose in life and your ability to belong to a community. Very powerful. Next one, put family first. Agreed, 100%, right? All about family. And the last one was keep a social circle that supports healthy behaviors. So, social circle of people, i.e. hacking your health.
It has a community and has purpose.
We check off and on top of it, we reduce your stress. We tell you how to, be on caloric restrictions. We don't tell you to favor a plant-based diet, so you're fucked on that. We tell you, but I mean, again, plants are a thing. Cool bean. We love everybody. We love carnivores. We love vegetarians. We love whatever you want to do.
Except the multivitamin guy. Except him.
Yeah, except the multivitamin guy. Yeah. Yeah, that's that guy. But we tell you to not drink alcohol in copious amounts. We keep a social circle that supports healthy behaviors. We talk to you about being, putting your family first all the time and talking about family. Like we literally check every single box minus the plant-based diet.
So what you're saying is, if you join the We Hack Health community, you have the potential to live over 100 years old.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's your slogan. When you join our community, hashtag not a cult, you could potentially live to be over 100 years old. Statistically, you're probably going to live past 100 years old.
Fair. I mean, I agree.
Well, that was it for this podcast. So obviously that was a joke. We can't guarantee you live for 100 years.
Well, no, I would say before we close out,
yeah,
in line with community, in line with having a purpose, in line with managing your calories and living a better life. As per this podcast this time last year, there are beta testers needed for this new program. As I've said, I'm rebuilding it from the ground up. It's going to be completely different. There's going to be a lot of focus around the initial 12 weeks. It's obviously going to be more than just me. The team will be involved in terms of Travis and Adam, also a lot of mindset stuff with Kira, and a lot of breathwork stuff, and probably hypnosis that I haven't really discussed. And we potentially should get Sean back on the podcast to talk about that. So if you're interested in being a part of that, there is a new link to book your strategy session with me. I'm doing that differently as well. It's all going to be completely different. It's going to be a lot more visual. It's going to be realistic in terms of managing expectations. I'm going to send a video beforehand about all the stuff, because I don't think I need to cover that in terms of like the check-in sheet and the true coach and all the bits. Like, it's going to be more focused around you as the person and what you need, and sort of what the what the prescription is in terms of what you need and what that looks like. So if you're interested in being a part of that, the link is in the description, bio, on Twitter, on all of the places. Can't guarantee you'll live to be over 100 years old, but you definitely will have more of a chance of living to be over 100 years old if you come on board.
That's right. Well, thanks everybody for listening to our escapades and extravaganzas for this week. But obviously it was a really exciting week, and Ben's got a lot going on. I got a lot going on, but I think I only got one major travel thing next week for a while. It was Hacking Fest, but it's a quick in and out, and travel then kind of comes to a screeching halt, which is going to be much needed for me. I need a normalcy coming in here, but I appreciate everybody tuning in for this week. Catch you again, same time, same place next week. Thanks all.
See you next week.